I don't care what you say, this new Mario Kart game is gonna feel very, very different, I think. Alright guys, so the dust has definitely not settled for Nintendo Switch 2 as of late. It's been a bit over a day since we've had the initial showcase of the trailer, and most of the focus, at least in my eyes, has been less about the console, right? We sort of knew an idea floating about. We had a couple rumors, a couple ideas, a couple images about what it looked like beforehand. So the main thing, the main surprise was, of course, Mario Kart. And we've already done 2 videos on my channel about that so far. You can check those out if you haven't already. And every time I look at this, I find something new. It's like, it's actually unreal. Like, I've seen a couple channels release analysis videos or everything you miss. And I'm like, oh, wait, that brought up some couple points. And then it's like, everything you missed, mate. It hasn't even been a day. We're going to be discovering stuff for at least for next week, maybe even next month. And people are like, oh, wait, have you noticed that? Have you noticed this? What if this is the case? I saw one suggestion that it potentially has time-changing mechanics because there's these big lights out in the back, which would be super cool. Or if, like, you know, this was like some crazy track where you could run around and practice in the back, almost like Lightning McQueen of the first movie. Oh, yeah, everyone's making that comparison. Thought I'd throw that in there, which is cool. Everyone likes cars, of course. I think like the same way we're really enamored with Japanese sort of lifestyle and stuff. I'm quite certain that they have a similar feeling towards the West, where it's like, oh, American, you know, the Grand Canyons and you know, dirt bikes and stuff. Like, I feel like it's sort of similar contrast, which is quite fun. So having it feel very American for this level just feels pretty cool. But that's not what I really want to talk about today. It's not necessarily the level, it's not necessarily the characters. What I want to talk about is about the karts. Now, something with the karts which I've noticed, and you can see in the trailer a lot, is how bouncy they look. I mean, obviously the animations feel very, very bouncy. You can see like the way the characters look cuter, as everyone's been saying. You can also see like the karts also are a bit smaller compared to previous entries, I feel, where it just makes it so they look more bobbleheady, right? They don't really look like bobbleheads. Again, it makes them feel more like karts than cars. And it really sort of like amps up that idea that this is almost like bumper cars, or, you know, like actual go-karts, where it's a bit more silly, it's a little bit more goofy. But I don't think it's just aesthetic. I think it's a bit more than that. Now, we've always had a mechanic like this in previous Mario Karts, where if you bump into another player, you sort of bounce across from them and stuff like that. But here, it feels like actual crazy impact to a certain extent, and not just like with characters bumping into each other. Like, as you can see, Bowser and Peach, they bump into each other. You can see Mario and Luigi and Bowser all bounce over that bridge as they go into a drift. But in the second section, where you see them drifting, you can see DK really sort of bounce around and get really high in the air from doing the drift. And it's like, that could just be a thing with a car, but I feel like there is this extra mechanic of having so many characters in a race, having, what is it, 24 is what people think? It feels like amping that idea of bumping into each other to be like more exciting, I guess, or have more impact, because they already mess around with that a little bit in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with being an anti-gravity, where if you spin into another character, you get a boost. It could be a case like this where you take a certain amount of damage from bumping into someone, or maybe you get a certain amount of charge from bumping into someone, or maybe it's just a case of it's a bit more crazy and a bit more hectic to bump into someone, where if you bounce back between like multiple people, you can actually topple over and end up like with your head against the floor or something. And they can have some really funny animations for that, of like maybe the character flying out of their vehicle and then having to like quickly run back in and stuff. Oh, that sounds so cool. I really think like having that idea in the concept room for when they were designing this game makes a lot of sense, because especially if they're deciding to not do anti-gravity, I have a feeling that just it won't be in this game, because it was such a piece of identity for 8. It doesn't make sense to carry it over. I don't know if we're going to get gliders or underwater in this one either. My guess is possibly gliders, because they've become like quite iconic to Mario Kart. But apart from that, I don't even think we're going to get customizable cars. I think everything's going to be kind of a bit more similar to Wii, but with a focus on a bigger roster of characters and a bigger amount of people on the tracks, and the removal of that feature of bouncing into characters on anti-gravity. I feel like they probably thought, okay, what else can we do with this feature? How can we make this more exciting? How can we make this less of just, they bumped into me, or they're getting ahead or something? Because so far in Mario Kart, right, right? When you bump into someone, it doesn't really do much. Like you sort of maybe get off track or something, and it's a little bit annoying, if anything. So if they made that more extreme to a certain extent, I think it could either go two ways. It could be very frustrating for people to play with, where it's like you knock into someone, and obviously there's different like weight classes and stuff, and that has something to do with it. But again, in the trailer, you really see Donkey Kong like go sort of crazy after he's doing his boost or whatever. Also, his face looks more similar to how he does traditionally when he's drifting. You can only see it for like a second, but people like complain like, oh, it looks so weird. He's more expressive, guys. Come on, right? Pretty sure if he crunches his eyes down, he would look the same as regular Donkey Kong. He's just raised his eyebrow, his unibrow, whatever, his skin brow. He's raised it up. That's all he's done, guys. Chill. Can't a man smile? Can't a man get excited? And something else which is very interesting is towards later in the clip where they drive over the boost pad, Mario gets like a big purple gust going around him, and Luigi doesn't. And then Bowser doesn't even lift up, maybe because Bowser's, again, is a heavyweight, and so he isn't able to like lift up as much as those other ones. But again, doesn't really make much sense with DK doing that. So there might be another mechanic with boost pads where you either save fuel by going on two wheels or something, or maybe the first one to go can take advantage of that. I really think there's going to be some sort of interesting mechanic surrounding this idea of building up fuel, or maybe not even just fuel, or building up some sort of meter, or some sort of ability which you can use later on. And I think it's gonna maybe take some inspiration from F-Zero 100 in that way, where that game is very heavy in terms of bouncing around with different players and stuff. And so I don't know. It's feeling like they're taking these existing principles of Mario Kart and really twisting them around. Because I feel like, sure, they could just make the main gimmick of this game be 24 races and sort of keep it sort of simple and make the tracks a tiny bit larger, but I don't think that's all there is with this game. I think they're taking the best of everything from Tour to Mario Kart 8 to all the previous ones, and this is genuinely going to be probably the best Mario Kart to date. Except for, you know, your favorites which you grew up with. Like, I love Mario Kart DS, I love Mario Kart Wii. This is random, I'm not going to talk about this in its own video, so if I could just chuck it in here. Some people seem to be upset or like nervous that the game will have jazz as its like main instrumentals and soundtrack. And I'm like, I can kind of understand the exhaustion of having the same Mario sound fonts basically for 10 years with Mario Kart. So I wouldn't be against having a really big variety of music outside of like the main thing being jazz. But it's not like we ever had just jazz in Mario Kart 8, right? We had like a bunch of different stuff, but I think like obviously its main motifs and its like main menu and everything was like crazy jazz bands, and it was like really, really fun. Maybe doing something more like techno, sort of like weird Mario Kart Wii type stuff would be really, really cool, because it's weird. Mario Kart music doesn't sound like any other music. It's just like, it's its own genre, right? You know, there's jazz, there's rock, there's Mario Kart music. So I don't know, I'm very excited to hear the soundtrack for this game, and I don't know, what do you guys think? There's something fishy going on, and I'm sure there's going to be more fishy stuff which we discover later on. Maybe that weird little yellow orb has something to do with it near the Yoshi burger joint, you know, which everyone was like, oh, it's a Wonder Seed. What if that's like, you know, gives you more abilities to do bumper car type things? Or maybe there's a different game mode where the more you bump into people, the more points you get. You know, there's so much little things which we could do with a new Mario Kart, and I'm really excited to see everything new with it, you know, and see them evolve the series. It's really exciting.